Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's get right into it. Have you ever really thought about a simple phrase like, it's raining? I mean, what could be simpler? Well, according to philosopher Kim Sung-chol, that tiny sentence hides a huge flaw in how we use language. And here's the kicker. Once you see this flaw, it could completely change how you think about, well, everything, even yourself. So let's break this down.
You and we say stuff like this all the time, right? It's raining. The wind is blowing. We don't give it a second thought. We just assume these are simple, direct descriptions of what's happening out there. But are they? What if our language is playing a little trick on our minds?
Because what if those simple, everyday sentences are built on a kind of logical illusion? That's what we're diving into today. We're going on a hunt for that hidden flaw. And trust me, you'll see that where this leads, it goes way deeper than just talking about the weather.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the problem hiding in simple words. Then we'll look at what we're calling the mind scissors. From there, we'll see how this leads to a redundant reality and even some wild paradoxes. We'll ask what language is really for. Is it a map or a tool? And we'll wrap up by rethinking the biggest concept of all, the self.
Okay, first up, the problem with simple words. Let's dig into why a phrase like, a flower is blooming, isn't nearly as simple as it sounds. The issue, it turns out, is hiding in plain sight. You know, we all kind of walk around with this fundamental assumption that we never really question. We think our language is basically a perfect mirror of the world. Like, we say a word, and it just points to the thing, right? But is that really what's going on?
Well, here's a pretty bold claim from Professor Kim Sung-chol. He says that the words we use, things like, it's raining, or a flower is blooming, are actually all incorrect. Yeah, you heard that right. He argues these supernormal phrases hide a deep logical contradiction. So let's unpack that. So where does this contradiction come from? What's causing the problem? Well, it turns out the problem isn't with reality. The flaw is in the tool we use to understand reality, our own mind. And our mind, in this case, acts a little bit like a pair of scissors. This key idea is called bifurcation. It literally just means cutting something into two, and it's this thing our mind does constantly, automatically, without us even noticing. It takes a single, whole event and just snip, cuts it into two separate pieces. And this is a perfect way to see it in action. So, out there in the world, there's just one thing happening, a single seamless weather event. But our minds can't handle it like that. So the scissors come out, and they split it into two concepts, a noun, rain, and a verb, falling. Okay, now we're going to see what happens when we put this whole process under the microscope. We're going to deconstruct it is raining and find that logical flaw.
So this creates two massive logical traps, okay? Trap number one is redundancy. Think about it. The word rain already implies falling. It's what rain does. So when you say rain is falling, it's like saying a falling thing is falling. It's redundant. Now, to try and escape that trap, you fall right into the second one, a factual contradiction. To make it not redundant, you have to imagine a rain that exists before it falls, a kind of non-falling rain, just hanging out. But that doesn't exist. Water vapor in a cloud isn't rain. It becomes rain as it falls. So the statement is either logically redundant or factually impossible. There's no way out.
And this is where it gets really cool. This isn't just some weird philosophical puzzle. This exact same kind of logical structure, where a statement kind of eats its own tail, shows up in famous paradoxes from both the East and the West.
Just look at this comparison. On the one hand, you have our Eastern logic example. It is raining, where the subject, rain, already contains the action, falling. On the other hand, a classic Western paradox. Imagine a wall with no graffiti spray painted on it. Well, what is that? It's graffiti. The statement itself is the very thing it's trying to forbid. It's the same self-contradictory loop.
And believe me, this isn't just about clever word games. This kind of thinking literally caused a crisis in mathematics. The famous logician Bertrand Russell used similar logic to explore set theory, and he came up with a paradox that shook the very foundations of math. It proved that even math, our most precise and logical system, isn't a perfect mirror of reality. It's a human system, and it has limits. Okay, so at this point, you might be thinking, great, so our language is broken, what are we supposed to do? If it can't even handle something as simple as rain, what good is it? Well, the answer is to change how we think about what language is for. Most of us walk around with the common view that language is a map, a perfect, one-to-one representation of reality. But a much better view the one this analysis points to, is that language is a tool. Think of a wrench. A wrench is incredibly useful for tightening a bolt, right? But you'd never mistake the wrench for the bolt. Words are just like that. They're practical tools we use to navigate the world and talk to each other. They're not the world itself.
And let's be clear, the danger isn't in using the tool. Of course we have to use language. The danger is when we forget it's just a tool. It's when we start mistaking the map for the actual territory. That's when we get all tangled up in these logical knots.
And this all leads us to the final and maybe the most powerful step in this whole idea. This is where we take everything we've just learned and apply it to the most important concept of all, you. What happens when we take those mind scissors and turn them on ourselves?
Because our minds do the exact same thing to ourselves. Just like we take the event raining and cut it into a noun, rain, and a verb, falling, we take our own seamless existence and cut it into a noun, me, or the self, and a verb, living, or life.
And that mental cut, that separation, creates this powerful illusion. We create this concept of me that feels totally separate from everything else. We talk about how I was born into the world, as if I existed somewhere else first. We wonder where I will go after death, as if I am a thing that can be moved around. And you know what? This creates some pretty profound existential anxiety. But what if? What if those huge, scary questions are actually built on a simple flaw in our language? So, let's just step back and think about what we've seen. Our language, the very tool we use for logic and reason, gets tied up in knots trying to describe something as simple as rain. So here's the final question, the one I want to leave you with. If our words can't even perfectly capture a simple weather event, how can they possibly capture the vast, complex, and profound reality of who you really are?